Morvan exited her home and looked to the morning sky as she stretched. There was a nip in the air, a hint that autumn would soon arrive. She surveyed the wooded landscape around her and sighed with pleasure. There was nowhere else she would rather live. The trees helped to cut the wind during the harsh winters, but that was not why she preferred the forest. Some called her magical. Others called her cursed. All Morvan knew was that the forest was her home. She understood the plants and animals. If that made her cursed, then she would gladly accept the mantle. She combed her fingers through her hair to push the heavy length out of her face, then quickly plaited it and tied it off with a strip of leather. "What's in store from me today?" she asked, her steps light and eager as she walked the short distance to the loch. The mountain was steep in places, and the rocks many as she made her way down to the water. She stopped just before she left the trees when she saw a herd of red deer drinking on the opposite bank of the narrow strip of water. Morvan waited, taking in the sight of the impressive herd. They knew her scent, but she didn't want to intrude. It wasn't until the last of them had had their fill and trotted away that she continued to the loch. She sat against the grouping of rocks and pulled an oatcake out of her pocket. It was rare for her not to be at the loch first thing in the morning. As she ate her breakfast, Morvan contemplated the day. Normally, there was a set area she would walk looking for animals that were in need of healing. Though the village thought her touched, there were those who didn't hesitate to ask for her skills if one of their animals were sick. The day before had been spent at the miller's, tending to the injured hoof of one of his sheep. Perhaps it was that she had been keeping from the woods by helping the miller that she felt the need to just wander the forest and see what she could find. With the oatcake finished, Morvan dusted off her hands and got to her feet. She turned to the right and began walking. As soon as she stepped back into the woods, a shiver ran down her spine. She halted instantly. The forest had been her home all her life, and not once had she ever felt such foreboding. As if fate were warning her that something was coming, or was already there. Morvan touched the nearest tree, a tall evergreen. The bark scraped her palm and pine needles crunched beneath her feet. The smell of pine permeated the air. "What is it?" she asked the tree. She didn't expect an answer, but since she lived alone, she found it better to talk to the plants and animals rather than not talk at all. Morvan took a deep breath as the music of the forest assaulted her. The wind whistling through the leaves, the creak of the limbs, the sweet songs of birds, every animal, every plant contributed to the beautiful music. When Morvan was just a child, she discovered that she was the only one who could hear the melody. She let her hand trail down the trunk of the tree as she lifted her foot and took a step, then another, and another. There wasn't another chill, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to happen. It didn't make her turn round, though. Morvan didn't turn away from anything or anyone. She slowly walked through the forest, stopping every now and again to admire a bird or flower. It didn't take long for her to relax as the tranquility of the woods seeped into her. She lost herself in the forest. She was spellbound by the serenity, enthralled by the peacefulness. Morvan suddenly stopped and looked around. She knew every inch of the woods, especially the boundary between the Mackay's lands and those of Clan Sinclair, that she was never to cross. How then had she crossed the border?